Shiny viewers, I am DS, your psychologist, and welcome to another episode on Channel Needs. A few months ago, we did an episode to inform our viewers how to distinguish between NE and NI. So this episode is an extension of the episode. So what are we going to do in this episode? We are going to discuss how NE and NI manifests itself in the 4 different positions. Regardless of which MBTI type you are, NE or NI must definitely be within your cognitive stack, either as the dominant function, auxiliary function, tertiary function, or your inferior function.
She deserves a crown, but where is it now?
Of course, if you have NE in your cognitive stack, then NI cannot be present, and vice versa. Without further ado, let's talk about NE in the 4 positions. The ENFP and the ENTP have NE as their dominant function. How does NE manifest itself as a dominant function? NE DOMs have never-ending theories. They are always thinking of different possibilities. They always generate new ideas and they are keen to test them out. They want to keep every new idea and they do not filter their ideas. And when they are entertaining one idea, they already think of the next. So the ideas keep coming and they want them all.
You can make up your mind.
So the NE DOM is very keen in exploration and they are also very likely to experience or test out their new ideas. This is also why, according to surveys, the ENFP is the most likely MBTI type to try same-sex sex. The INFP and the INTP are NE auxiliary users. So NE is their second function. So how is NE manifested as the second function? So as the second function, NE users like to expand different ideas. NE auxiliaries recognize that there are a lot of different ways to look at the same concept. So they want to entertain every angle of looking at the same concept. Regardless of whether you are an NE dominant or an NE auxiliary, you are an NE user. NE users tend to be very curious because they want to entertain the possibility of having a new idea. As such, NE users are the most likely people to give you a prank. Why? They may be curious to see your reaction, they have a hypothesis and they want to test it out. If NE happens to be the 3rd position of your cognitive stack, then you are an NE tertiary user. So ESFJs and ESTJs are NE tertiaries. So an NE tertiary is very likely to think of all the different possibilities and then they will choose from there which one of these possibilities is the most likely to help them. So in a way, they are very likely to practice some form of filtering. But this is very different from NI because NI filtering is very quick and you can be really unconscious of this filtering. For an NE tertiary, this filtering may be very conscious and you need to put in some real cognitive effort to it. Finally, we come to the NE inferior users, ISFJs and ISTJs. If you are an NE inferior user, then you tend to be very anxious about uncertainties, anxious about the unknown. You would rather entertain it in your brain, but you are very unlikely to test out your hypothesis. You prefer status quo. In other words, NE inferior users are very slow to accept new possibilities.
Yeah. Slow.
Okay, now let's move on to NI, introverted intuition. The INTJ and the INFJ are NI dominants. So NI is their dominant function. For the NI DOMs, everything in the world is interconnected and they are very keen to explore the relationship between different things. In their brain, in their mind.
In your head.
So NI users want to determine the meaning and implications of all these different connections. They are also going to be very sensitive to meaningful connections. In other words, they are going to be very sensitive to things like synchronicity.
When destiny has a sense of humor, you call it.
NI users, especially NI DOMs, are able to see some connections very quickly. Next, the ENTJ and the ENFJ, they are NI auxiliary users. An NI auxiliary user is very likely to use their intuitive knowledge and try to filter all the different possibilities to look at the one that can help them achieve their goals. If their gut feeling is correct, they can actually make very counterintuitive decisions. So sometimes the ENFJ and the ENTJ can be seen as daredevils. Moving on, the ISFP and the ISTP are NI tertiary users. NI is their third function. So how does NI as a third function manifest itself? So ISFPs and ISTPs may ask this question: how can I improve on the approach that I usually take using my intuition? So in this case, NI may be used to perfect one's existing talents and skills. Finally, we have the ESFP and the ESTP. NI is their inferior function. As an inferior function, ESFPs and ESTPs really dislike over-analyzing and over-planning. Nonetheless, NI is still there, existing as the fourth function, right? So NI does play a minor role. NI sometimes develops as a hunch for what is going to unfold for the ESFP and the ESTP.
That tonight's gonna be a good night.
But of course, this hunch is going to be much more accurate for true NI users. NI users who use them as the dominant or the auxiliary function. I hope you have learned something regarding NE and NI from this episode and that you have enjoyed this episode. If you have not subscribed, do consider subscribing so that we can bring you more MBTI and psychology. Okay, I'm going to sign off now and I'll see you in my next episode. Goodbye!